Hi guys, I'm just another guy named James, and today I'm going to be talking about, according to the internet, one of the worst superhero movies of all time. Do I think it's a good movie? No. Do I think it's the worst of all time? Also no. And that is, of course, Green Lantern. Now, I literally just finished watching it 45 minutes, half an hour ago, so it's pretty fresh in my head. So we'll see what we've got. So overall, the movie kind of follows the same major plot beats of a comic book story, which is also, coincidentally, the origin of Hal Jordan's Green Lantern, Emerald Dawn. And I actually have a whole video talking about Emerald Dawn. So if you want to check that out, it's in the iCard on this side of the screen or this side of the screen. I forget which. So, but either way, we've got it follows kind of the same beats of Emerald Dawn, except skipping over a couple completely and adding one incredibly annoying one. So let's hop into it. So the movie starts completely separate from who will become our main character, Hal Jordan. It starts with a monologue over visuals explaining the history of the Green Lanterns and the history of the main villain of the movie, Parallax. The movie's got a lot going on in terms of villains, by the way, because it also has Hector Hammond, another classic Green Lantern villain, and the setup of Sinestro to become a villain, the ultimate Green Lantern villain, really. But I digress. So it starts on the monologue explaining who the Green Lanterns are and Parallax, and then we cut to Hal Jordan, who in this version of the story, it doesn't really have any big character problems. He's just kind of a jerk. So, you don't like him, but that doesn't really change until the very end of the movie, unfortunately. But he goes on a test flight. He actually does too good, so everyone gets mad at him and he gets fired. Yeah, that's right, he gets fired for being good at his job. There's this thing called logic, and I think the movie forgot about it, but anyway. But after he's fired, he finds Abin Sewer's. Well, Abin Sewer's ring brings Hal to the crashed spaceship of Abin Sewer, and Abin Sewer got killed fighting Parallax. And that's basically all you need to know about him. So Hal gets the ring, but he can't use it. He learns how to use it, and then he goes to Oa, where, yeah, there's some, character stuff that happens in the middle of that with, Hal's friend from work, Tom, helping him out a couple times. Yeah, it's not really that important. And this is also where Hector Hammond gets introduced, where he comes in and where Amanda Waller comes in and tells him, hey, by the way, you're doing this for me. You don't get a choice, and you can't tell anyone about it either. So life kind of sucks for Hector, but they find Amanda and Hector find Abin Sewer's body, dissect him, and some of Parallax's energy gets absorbed into Hector. So he starts going a little crazy. So as that's going on, Hal is learning basically how he learns how to charge the ring, and that's about it. And then he goes to Oa, where theoretically he should be trained, and if this was the comic story, he wouldn't go back to Earth until the very end, after the action's over. But that's not how it works. So, yeah. So basically he's getting trained, and Sinestro, who is the like head honcho of the Green Lanterns at this point, decides, you know what? I'm mad at Parallax. He kept taking down my guys. Boom, we're gonna go get him. And a bunch of other Green Lanterns agree to it. So they try and go after him, but they fail, and all of them but Sinestro die. So that kind of sucks. All the Green Lanterns that are actually in the party, not all of them die. But Hal is also, this is also when Hal is being trained. So Kilowog is training him, and so is Tomar Ray. I forget which one. One's in the comics and one's in the movie. Not really all that relevant. But so Tomar and Kilowog are training Hal, and Hal's not really very good at being a Green Lantern. And then Sinestro comes in and is like, they have a cool fight, cool Green Lantern versus Green Lantern fight, and Hal loses. So instead of, acting like the hero, that instead of obeying the laws of his character as established over at that point, 51 years that he existed, he decided to quit. He decides to go home to Earth and quit being a Green Lantern. He still has the ring, but he's not going to be a part of the Corps. So he goes home, but he saves a helicopter from crashing it, from killing a bunch of people. So he decides, maybe I can do this. And a bunch of people recognize him. Carol Ferris recognizes him and is like, okay, you're a hero now. So does his buddy Tom. So Tom and Carol both know that Hal is Green Lantern. And as this is going on, Hector is also going further down the rabbit hole and is like becoming more how he looks in the comics. And yeah. And the movie basically ends with Hector and Hal having a big fight. Hal wins, and then Parallax comes in and kills Hector. And Parallax is basically a floating space cloud, which is the embodiment of fear. And man, does it suck. Yeah, I'm not a big fan of the way they depict Parallax in this movie. So, but Hal is able to beat Parallax by throwing him into the sun. And that's how the movie ends. And then there's a side story in there where Sinestro wants to also use the power of fear to fight Sinestro, but Hal ends up stopping him from doing that. So in the post-credit scene for the movie, Sinestro becomes a Yellow Lantern instead of a Green Lantern. So yeah, and that's about all there is to the actual story of the movie. But now I want to get into why I don't like it. So Green Lantern's actually probably my favorite DC Comics character. So him being in such a not good movie where most of the problem stems from his character being bad, to be frank. His character doesn't really grow that much. He just kind of stops being a jerk throughout the movie. And that's about it. And it's not all that interesting to watch him. All the other Green Lanterns are far more interesting. Mostly because we actually get to see them being Green Lantern. And this is kind of a problem I have with a lot of early, mid-2000s superhero movies. There's not enough superhero in those movies. There's too much, in this movie, there's too much Hal Jordan, not enough Green Lantern. So it's a hard mix, I guess, because sometimes you want to see more character, and sometimes you want to see more superhero. I rarely want to see more character. But anyway, now let's move away from Hal. Actually, never mind. I've got one more thing about Hal. I don't like the way the Green Lantern costumes look. The way that they're like an energy construct of the costume. It doesn't appeal to me. And the way the like energy like literally pulses in the fabric whenever they use their power, I don't think it's a very good effect. I don't think it's the effect they wanted it to have. But I do think the actual Green Lantern battles in this movie are really good. So when it decides it wants to be a superhero movie with, you know, like actual fights and stuff, it's good at it. It understands the action of Green Lantern very well. It just doesn't understand his character very well, which is frustrating. It's also frustratingly similar to Emerald Dawn, but with all the charm of Hal Jordan taken away, and all the character of Hal Jordan taken away. I also don't like the villain of the movie, either of them. I don't like Hector or Parallax, because either of them should have been independent of each other. Should have been either should have been either just Hector or just Parallax. But even Parallax, I think is. Now, keep in mind, take what I'm about to say about Parallax with a grain of salt, because I don't actually read new comics. The kind of the newest ones I read are in the 90s, so maybe this is a thing in newer Green Lantern comics. But in the comics I read, Parallax is an entirely separate entity from what he is in the movie. Because in the comics, Parallax is actually Hal Jordan himself when he is driven mad by power and grief after trying to resurrect Coast City, his home, after it was destroyed by Cyborg Superman. So it's an entirely different character for me, and I don't know why the movie didn't stick with the character of Legion, who is a character that actually does a good job of showing off why Hal Jordan is different from from the rest of the Green Lantern Corps, and how the Guardians aren't entirely as good as they appear to be. Because in the movie, they're pretty much entirely irrelevant to the story, which is odd because they're the ones that give the power. They should be relevant. But yeah, so I don't like the villains of the movie. I don't like the way that they look in the movie. There's a lot that I don't like about it. But overall, do I think it's the worst superhero movie of all time? And no, I don't. Do I even think it's the worst DC movie of all time? Are you kidding me? No. With some of the other movies they've got out there, like the original cut of Justice League and Batman vs. Superman and Man of Steel and Batman Forever and Batman and Robin, we've got all of those. I don't know how you can say that this is so much worse. But I think the problem that I have with it is I see its potential to be good, and I see that potential not being used. And there are some things I think they got really good. I think that Kilowog and Tomar look and sound great. I think Sinestro's great. They're just not the main characters of the story, so they get naturally overshadowed by Hal. But the thing about Hal is he's boring in this movie. He's not an interesting character, and that's the biggest problem with it. That's why it's remembered as the worst superhero movie, even though it isn't. There are plenty of worse ones. But so that's my opinion on the 2011 Green Lantern movie. And I'm actually really curious to hear if anyone else has any opinions on this one. So, I'm just another guy named James, and I'll see you guys next time. Enjoy.